All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the final part of our fourth BCBA practice exam. We're finishing up and going through the last remaining questions together, breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our BCBA study materials, including practice exam study guides and our combo pack. As always, when you pass, let us know so we can include you in our Sunday shout out. Other than that, let's work hard, study hard, get to our questions. 179. Sally, the owner of Black Lotus ABA Company and behavior analyst, received reports from her supervising analyst that treatment fidelity has been subpar lately. Supervisors are reporting several targets that are being run incorrectly. Sally wants to directly measure treatment fidelity of the staff. How might she do this? This question is a good example of why we must take the time to really understand what the question is asking and giving us before trying to answer it. So, we always want to make sure we completely fully understand the question before going to the answer choices. So let's break this down. How might she do this? Well, what does Sally want to do? She wants to directly measure treatment fidelity. And the key here is this idea of directly measuring treatment fidelity. Because as we know, we have indirect measures and we have direct measures. So even though her supervising analyst are saying treatment fidelity is subpar, they're reporting several targets are being run incorrectly, none of that is really relevant because what we're trying to answer is how is Sally going to measure that and measure that directly. And in order to measure it directly, she needs to actually observe what is happening. So by spending all this time on the question, we've pretty much predicted our answer, and now we can go through the answer choices a lot more prepared. So A, provide staff with a questionnaire to fill out regarding treatment. Now ask yourself, is a questionnaire filled out by the staff direct measurement? No, of course not. That would be indirect measurement. What about B, attend some of the staff's sessions? Well, that seems like a good way to directly measure treatment fidelity. Actually going in, observing the staff, attending their sessions. B looks good. Read all of your answer choices. C, have the supervisors conduct performance reviews on the staff. Now, the supervisors might be measuring directly, but Sally is not. And we are worried about Sally. So again, you have to read slowly because we're worried about Sally, not her other supervisors. And then D, interview the stakeholders of each of the clients and ask about treatment. So that is an interview with a stakeholder, an indirect form of measurement. The only direct form of measurement that involves Sally directly measuring treatment fidelity is going to be B, attend some of the staff sessions. So some good lessons from this question itself. 180. After an assessment, you write up a treatment plan and present it to the stakeholders. The stakeholders disagree with one of the interventions and would like you to try something else. You pick another intervention, which the stakeholders fail to implement. The third intervention that you choose, once again, the stakeholders disagree and refuse to try it. What are your options as a behavior analyst? This can be a frustrating situation because as behavior analysts, we know we have to include stakeholders. They get a say, clients get a say. We have to be ethical. We have to treat them with respect and integrity, but it can be difficult if they refuse to do anything you want to implement. Because from your point of view, how are you going to make progress if we can't implement things that you believe are going to make progress? So you have to think about what the ethical code says about parents complying with our interventions. And in the most recent ethical code, it gives us more leeway with that, right? It's no longer, well, no matter what, we have to figure it out, okay? Because in this case, if you've written up a treatment plan, you've presented it, and they disagree, so you try something else, you pick another intervention, they don't implement it correctly, and then the third one, they disagree again. So this relationship might just not be working out. Maybe your style doesn't fit, maybe they don't fit with you. Whatever the case, who's hurting from this arrangement? Well, the client. And once the client is in jeopardy, that's when we must take action. So what are your options here as the behavior analyst after these three different treatments haven't worked out? A, you must continue searching for new interventions that will fit the client's needs. Well, if we continue searching for new interventions, we're just wasting more time, assuming this pattern continues. So you can try a fourth time, but if the fourth time doesn't fail, are you going to try a fifth and a sixth time? You don't have to continue searching for new interventions. You must put the client first and think about, how is this impacting them, right? We've yet to implement something that's even started, okay? We've made no progress. That's a problem. B, the stakeholders have final say in your interventions. You must keep working with them to find one that fits. That is not true. The stakeholders will never have a final say in what you believe or what you choose to implement, right? You're the expert. You're the one providing this treatment and writing this treatment. Now, they have a say in it, but they shouldn't have final say, okay? And just because, again, you've tried and tried and tried, doesn't mean you have to keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. We can go to C. If an agreement cannot be made, you can refer your client out to another provider. Sometimes that's just what it is, right? Even internally at companies, families might go through different supervisors or consultants before they find the right fit, right? When you pick out your medical doctor or your hairstylist or your dentist or whoever, sometimes you just have to go to a few to see who's the right fit. It's no different from the therapy we provide, right? So if you've gone through these 3 already treatments, nothing's worked, you've made no progress, nothing's happening. Maybe if an agreement can't be made, you just refer out the client to another provider. D, both B and C, well, no, because you don't have to just keep working, even though it's futile. You've got to put the client first and their interests first. And based on the information, the client is not making progress. They're not receiving good service. Maybe it's time to refer them out to somebody else. 181, which of the following target behaviors should not be written into a treatment plan for a client? This goes along the lines of our private event discussion in our video that we just put out, which you should check out. When we're thinking about target behaviors, right? When we think about public events and private events, they're behaviors, thoughts, feelings, what are considered behaviors in radical behaviorism. But we don't target them. And why not? Because we can't reliably observe them and reliably measure them. That's why we deal with public events in our practice, right? So we're going to look for target behaviors, right? And then we're going to look for one that should not be written into a treatment plan for a client. A, Billy Joe slams his fist on his desk whenever he answers wrong. Target behavior, slamming fist. Can you reliably observe and measure slamming fist? Sure, totally fine. B, Jeff slouches in his chair whenever he is uncomfortable or wants to avoid answering questions. Now, we're talking about the target behavior, right? The target behavior is slouching, okay? So if our target behavior is slouching, we can observe, we can measure that, okay? We're not worried about uncomfortable or wants to avoid. We're just thinking about a target behavior. C, Anna pulls her sister's hair whenever her sister interrupts her phone calls and makes her angry. Target behavior is hair pulling. Okay, again, what is our target behavior? Hair pulling. Can you observe? Can you measure? Yes, you can. So D, Tiffany throws her plate to the ground whenever she is frustrated by eating vegetables. Target behavior is frustration. There's our issue, right? We can't reliably observe and measure frustration. We're not going to place this in our treatment plan. Could you target throwing plate? Absolutely. So you've got to be smart about your target behavior and what you pick. All right. The antecedents can be the antecedents, the consequences can be the consequences, but you have to be smart about picking behaviors that we can observe and that we can measure so that we can change them reliably. 182, Brittany's friend tells her that she should take a shot of pickle juice after taking a shot of whiskey to reduce the burn of the whiskey. Brittany tries this but becomes nauseous. Brittany no longer drinks pickle juice. Brittany's behavior changed as a result of what? All right, by this time, reinforcement and punishment. You should have this down pat, right? These are our fundamentals, okay? You want the fundamentals to be automatic. Reinforcement increase, punishment decrease, positive add, negative take away. Let's break it down, right? Brittany's friend says, take a shot of pickle juice after your shot of whiskey to reduce the burn. There's our antecedent. Brittany tries this. She takes the pickle juice. The consequence is she becomes nauseous. What happens? No longer drinks pickle juice. All right. How did Brittany's behavior change? Well, it decreased, right? She no longer drinks pickle juice. So Brittany's behavior was punished. Now, was she punished as a result of adding something or taking something away? Well, once she took the shot of pickle juice, she became nauseous. The nausea, the nauseous feeling, however you want to say it, was added. So it was positive. So put those together. We have this positive thing, right? It was added, okay? And then her behavior decreased. It was punishment. Brittany's behavior changed as a result of positive punishment. Just like that, right? Behavior questions, that's the secret. Whose behavior are we looking at? Let's identify antecedents and consequences, and then the behavior relative to those antecedents and consequences. If you can do those steps, you will never miss one of these behavior questions. 183, you are in charge of personnel training and management at your new behavior analyst job. You notice that there is a significant reactivity whenever you attempt to observe your staff working. What type of measurement will be most effective at reducing reactivity? To answer this question, you need to know a couple things. First, what is reactivity? You have to know that. Reactivity is the change in behavior in the presence of usually another person or another stimuli, right? So if you supervise a session and your client and the client's behavior changes in the presence of your presence, that's reactivity, right? If your work performance changes in the presence of your boss, that's reactivity. Okay. So behavior is changing in the presence of a stimulus, usually a person. Okay. You want to do what? You want to reduce reactivity. So if you are in charge of training and management and you notice reactivity whenever you observe your staff, well, how are you going to reduce reactivity? Well, you've got to figure out a way to either observe less or measure without observing, because the observing is leading to the reactivity. That's the problem. So we need a measurement where we can reduce reactivity, meaning a less intrusive way of measuring behavior. A, interval recording. So interval recording, partial or whole interval. Even with partial or whole interval, you might be recording for shorter amount of times, but you're still there, right? They can still react to your presence. So it might be an improvement, but maybe it's not a perfect solution. Okay. None of these are going to be perfect, but is there a better solution than interval recording? What about B, event recording? Well, event recording is worse than interval recording for this situation, because with event recording, you've got to be there for every single behavior, right? So you're going to be there for long stretches of time. Time sampling. So something like momentary time sampling. This is similar to interval recording, right? Because you might only be there for a limited amount of time, but either way, you're still going to be observing them at some point. So time sampling is probably the best up to this point, because at least with time sampling, you only have to observe at the very end of your intervals, right? So you might set a 10-minute interval and only come observe at the end of 10 minutes, but you're still there observing, right? So if we look at D, permanent product is the one where you don't have to be present at all to measure the outcome. Okay. So if we were going to rank these as far as reducing reactivity, permanent product is best because you're not observing at all. Time sampling, second best, interval recording, and then event recording. Okay. But none of these are perfect, right? Nothing ever is perfect. But if we are going based on what the question wants us to do, which is most effectively reduce reactivity, well, we need to pick the best one where you're going to observe the least and still be able to measure behavior. And that's going to be D, permanent product. 184. Tim always has to submit his insurance reports and treatment plans in July and December. These months become really busy, so he typically passes off some of his duties to his supervisees. These duties can include parent training, assessment, or data analysis. Is this okay for Tim to do? Put yourself in Tim's shoes. You are a behavior analyst, and if you've ever worked in this field, right, you might know what this is like, okay? Maybe every 6 months, you've got to submit these reports, and you get really busy in July and December. So to alleviate that, because your reports are very important, you give duties to supervisees. Now, we don't specify what type of supervisees these are. These could be technicians. These could be people training to become analysts. We're not quite sure, okay? So don't make assumptions about the supervisees. Simply answer, can Tim do this? Can he pass parent training, assessment, and data analysis off to supervisees? A, yes, Tim is free to pass off duties to supervisees under his supervision. Now, that is a very decent answer, okay? Tim can choose to do whatever he wants. Do we have a better answer, right? You always need to read all of your answer choices. B, no, these are not technician duties. Well, we never talked specifically about technicians. We talked about supervisees, all right? You've got to read carefully. We're not talking necessarily about technicians, the supervisees in general. C, maybe Tim must ensure that his supervisees are competent and trained in these duties. Yes. If Tim concludes that his supervisees are competent and trained, he is free to pass off parent training and all these things. If they are trained and able to do it, sure, under his supervision, go ahead. If they're not, then the answer is no. So it's going to be a maybe. Okay, maybe. Are they trained? Are they competent? If so, go for it. If not, then Tim needs to either train them and get them competent or do that themselves. And then finally, 185. You know how hard the board exam is, so you want to help out your friends who are also studying. You attempt to remember the hardest questions that you received on your exam to share with them the following day. Have you done anything wrong? Question is asking, can you go to the board exam and try to remember the hardest questions and then share them? Now, you should know the answer to this. Pretty obvious, but let's go through it. A, yes, the questions are protected by the BACB and the code. Have you done anything wrong? Yes, they are protected. It's in the code. You cannot share these questions on their exam. Okay. B, yes, you cannot help your friends study once you've taken the exam. Not true. You're free to help your friends study. You just can't give them the exact questions. C, no, the questions are not protected by the BACB and the code. That is false. They are protected. And then D, maybe it depends on what questions you remember. Absolutely not, right? You cannot share actual board exam questions with anybody. The questions are protected by the BACB and the code. Excellent. That was exam 4. If you have already purchased our combo pack, we will be sending this out to you shortly once we get it all polished up and ready to go. Everybody else, we will be adding this to our combo pack. So we will now offer 4 practice exams. Pretty exciting. Tomorrow, we're back with our practice question series, and then Sunday, our task list series. Be sure to like and subscribe to get all of those updates. Let us know when you pass. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.